My name is Aria. I'm 36 years old, currently living and working in Charleston, South Carolina. That night, I was standing in the hallway of my own hotel, wearing a simple shirt and holding the event plan in my hand, when my sister, Rachel, pointed at me in front of dozens of people and said, "Kick her out of here, she's ruining my image." No one laughed, but no one defended me either. My mother looked away, and the new manager nervously complied. I wasn't mistaken for an employee. I was deliberately erased from my own story. Have you ever been treated as invisible by your own family, even though you were the one quietly building everything they enjoy? If you've ever been pushed aside by your own relatives, leave a comment below. Hit like, subscribe to hear more. Because what happened after that day was colder than their eyes. I grew up in a faded two-story blue house on the outskirts of Charleston, where the summer cicadas seemed louder than the people. That house was always full of sounds. The clanging of pots and pans, the humming old washing machine, and my mother's voice regularly calling from the back kitchen, telling me to do this, clean that, help Rachel change clothes or braid her hair. Rachel is 6 years younger than me, always wearing princess dresses, known as the family's darling. Every time guests came over, my mother would tell me to go to the backyard, don't make noise so the girl can practice dancing. Meanwhile, I washed dishes, folded clothes, cleaned the yard, and watched Rachel every afternoon after school while my mother worked overtime at the grocery store. I never saw injustice as something worth speaking up about. In my house, silence was a virtue. When I was 15, my literature teacher gave me a ride home after a gifted student exam. He stopped the car at our door and told my mother that I had potential, that if I kept it up, I could get into a top school with a full scholarship. My mother nodded politely and closed the door. That night, she told me, "Don't listen to those who make you chase illusions. You're the eldest. You must stay to help the family." A few years later, I was accepted to the University of North Carolina with an almost full scholarship. I didn't celebrate. I just showed the acceptance letter to my mother, softly saying, "I can go to school." She looked up from the iron and replied curtly, "Your dad has back pain. Rachel is still little. This house can't run itself, Arya. Where you study isn't important, but family is one." I folded the letter and put it in the drawer. So I didn't go. I enrolled in distance learning, worked night shifts as a receptionist at a small motel in town. During the day, I helped my mother cook, picked up Rachel from school, and cleaned the house. While my friends showed off photos of their campus, I only heard the hurried footsteps on old stone floors under the dim lights of the front desk. At 11 p.m., I don't remember exactly when I started dreaming of owning a hotel. Maybe it was when I stood behind the counter, watching an elderly couple hold hands as they walked through the lobby, their eyes peaceful as if the outside world no longer frightened them. I wished I could create a place like that. A place where everyone is welcomed, everyone has a place, everyone is called by their real name. At 25, I found an abandoned house on a quiet street near the river. Cracked walls, a leaking roof, grass grown up to my knees. The broker looked at me as if I were crazy when I said I would turn it into a boutique hotel. I used my meager savings, borrowed from the bank, and started. I did everything: scraping paint, repainting, installing pipes, building a reception desk from recycled wood. I learned everything from tutorial videos, doing and learning at the same time. Once I fell from a ladder and twisted my ankle, but no one was there to call. I lay still on the cold tile floor, staring at the rotten ceiling, telling myself, "Don't give up. You've come this far." Every night I called home. My mother asked only one question. "Rachel needs a new dress for the recital. Did you send money?" When the first hotel was complete, I named it the Rowan House. Rowan is a hardy tree believed in Wales to bring strength to those living through storms. On opening day, I sent invitations home. Called 3 times, no one answered. I stood at the door, wearing the nicest dress I had, welcoming guests alone. Neighbors, old friends, people I once helped. Everyone came. Except my family. That night, after taking off my shoes and sitting on the wooden stairs, I read a message from my mother. "Rachel has a slight fever, so she can't come, and parties aren't necessary, Arya. You know those frivolous things don't keep anyone." I typed and deleted my reply dozens of times. Finally, I sent a single word, understood. From then on, I stopped inviting them, even as I opened a second, then third hotel, even as I was featured in local papers, mentioned in a column about women entrepreneurs in Charleston. My family only ever asked one thing. Can you send Rachel's tuition this month? Mom plans to buy more supplements for your dad. I sent it, not because they demanded, but because I never learned how to say no. Until that party day when my sister, in a rented, glamorous dress, stood in the grand hall where I laid every brick with my own hands and said, "She's ruining my image." Maybe I should thank Rachel, because thanks to that sentence, I realized I owe no one anything anymore. I'm no longer the girl standing in the shadows watching her sister dance on stage. No longer the sister quietly cleaning, hearing mom's orders and smiling. No longer the girl sitting in front of invitations never answered. I am the owner of this space, and it's time for me to step out of the shadows. One weekend morning, I received a message from Rachel when I was standing in the lobby of the third hotel, just completed. The message was only one line. Are you free this Friday? I want to see you. Not for work, just, I miss you. I stared at the screen for a long time. The message came without the usual heart emojis or smiling faces Rachel often used. It was short, unpretentious, and somehow genuine. On Friday, I went home to my parents after nearly a year. The house hadn't changed much, still old tiled roof, white wooden door now peeling. Mom opened the door, still holding a hand towel, the smell of grilled meat and cinnamon wafting from the back kitchen. "You're here, Arya," she said, smiling faintly. "Come in. It's been a long time since the whole family was here." I stepped inside, feeling a slight hesitation as I saw the dinner table set nicer than usual. The china set my mother only brought out on holidays was neatly arranged. Next to Dad, Rachel was pouring wine into glasses, her hand sparkling with a new diamond ring. She looked up and smiled. "You really came. I thought you'd find an excuse like usual." I sat opposite Rachel. For a moment, silence fell like someone locked an invisible door. My mother quickly broke the quiet with small talk. "You used to work at that hotel?" "Yes," I answered. Rachel smiled lightly and shrugged. "I just want tonight to be relaxed. I know I was a bit much before." I didn't respond, just looked into the glass in front of me. Dad remained silent as usual, eyes fixed on his plate. He was never a man of many words. The dinner went on with light conversation. Rachel talked about her upcoming wedding plans, about Caleb, about Mrs. Monroe, who was very strict but values precision. Mom nodded often, occasionally chiming in, "You have to prepare perfectly. This is your chance to change your social position." I kept a polite smile until Mom put down her leather bag and pulled out a stack of cream-colored papers, neatly clipped in a folder labeled The Blake Monroe Wedding Vision. "Your sister Rachel already has a detailed plan," she said, her voice light as if talking about a picnic. "The venue is planned to be a garden estate north of Charleston, but after hearing Caleb's family prefers classic European style, I thought you could help." I stared at her without blinking. "What if the wedding was held at your hotel?" she continued. "There's outdoor space, lawns, private rooms for VIP guests. We could hire an event company or, if you prefer, use your staff." Rachel propped her chin on her hand, eyes sparkling. "It's going to be a dream wedding. I think the press will love it. An artistic space with a personal touch, and people will be even more impressed when they learn it's at the hotel owned by the bride's own sister." I slowly set down my fork and knife. "And," my mother added, "the cost isn't impossible, roughly $180,000, but if we use your place, we'll save a lot. It's not by chance God gave you success, right?" Now's the time to show some family love." That last sentence was said softly, as if I were declining an invitation for tea rather than discussing a planned event. I said nothing. No objection, no agreement, no sign of discomfort. I just sat there like a stone in a kitchen filled with the smell of food and lively voices. But deep inside, something was shifting. I had heard lines like that for years. You're the strong one, please understand her. You're the successful one, helping the family. You have plenty, sharing a little won't hurt. And every time I nodded, every time I sent money, helped out, arranged things. But tonight I no longer found those words easy to accept. Not because of money, nor because of the hotel, but because of how they said it. Because of the look that treated it as a given, a duty, something I had to do to keep the family whole. I glanced at my father. He said nothing, still the quiet man who stood behind my mother all his life. Rachel was enthusiastically talking about the wedding dress, and my mother was flipping through the plan, pointing at each item with excitement as if it had already been agreed upon. I just sat there, eyes fixed on them, not blinking. And when Rachel turned to me, gently touching my hand, speaking with a voice as sweet as honey, "Please help me. This wedding will be a turning point for me." I smiled softly, a smile polite enough, yet somehow different. They didn't notice, but the audience would. Because in my eyes then, there was no longer silence. It was a door just opening, and inside, no one was sitting quietly, enduring anymore. 3 days after that dinner, while I was meeting with the finance team at the Rowan Estates main office, my assistant Thomas came in, holding a large cream-colored envelope embossed with the name of a private event company, the Meadowline Collective. "Someone from the bride's side sent this," Thomas said, setting it on my desk. "They say it's the confirmation documents for next month's wedding." I didn't touch it immediately, just looked at it as one would at something familiar yet suspicious. Inside, everything suddenly felt heavy, like water just sliced by a blade. I opened it. Inside was a full-color contract set, on thick, smooth paper with golden edges, heavy enough to feel its weight in my palm. The first page clearly stated, "Main sponsor Arya Blake." The second page, "Estimated total cost $180,000. The third page, "Payment responsibility clause if the bride's family fails to fulfill financial obligations." This section was bolded, underlined, ending with a small note. "The sponsor is assumed to bear all penalties, service fees, and legal costs if payment is late or contract is canceled." I slowly placed the contract on the desk. No calls, no questions, no "do you agree?" Just an imposition wrapped in fancy paper and assumed signatures. I looked out the glass door, where early winter light slanted through the white curtains. Outside, camphor trees were shedding leaves one by one, as light as the feeling in my chest then. Light yet piercing. My phone buzzed. The screen showed a notification. Rachel just posted a new viral video. I opened it. She sat on a long porch chair, wearing designer sunglasses, her hair in waves, behind her flowers, and a sign reading "The Blake Monroe Dream Wedding." Her voice was clear. "My sister is a millionaire, but guess what? She still drives a 10-year-old sedan. No wigs, no designer bags, no stylist. I don't get it. What kind of millionaire is she?" Laughter played from sound effects. Below the video were hundreds of thousands of views, mocking comments and shares, with the hashtag minimalist millionaire. I sat still, expressionless. Thomas came closer, quietly asking, "Want me to handle PR? Report the clip? Request a takedown?" I shook my head. "No need." He paused for a few seconds, then nodded and left the room. I opened a drawer, placed the contract into a folder labeled "Unconfirmed Transaction." I took a red pen from the stand and crossed out 2 lines. No signature, no validity. Then I opened my computer, turned on the hotel's security camera system. I searched recent surveillance clips with the keyword "Rachel Blake entering property this week." The screen displayed many small video clips with clear timestamps. In one video, Rachel walked into the grand lobby with a woman in business attire, likely an event planner. They had no appointment, no prior registration. Rachel strode as if entering her own home, pointing to walls, corridors, and the backyard. I fast-forwarded the footage. At the end, she clearly told the woman, "Don't worry, my sister won't refuse." She lives for image. She wouldn't want to be called the selfish sister. I paused, saved the clip, naming it Confirmed Coercion Attempt, Rachel Blake. My actions then were neither rushed nor hateful. I was just rewriting what they thought I would forget. That night, when I got home, I opened my computer and checked emails. In my inbox was a new message from planner@meadowline.com. Dear Arya, we are honored to work with you on this special family event. Please sign the contract and transfer the first installment before the 15th. I clicked compose, typing slowly, to Meadowline. I have never confirmed any transactions related to the aforementioned wedding. Any documents sent without formal agreement are invalid. All future communication must be routed through the Rowan Estates Legal Department. Respectfully, Arya Blake. I reread and hit send. It wasn't anger that made my hand shake then. It was clarity, a deep quiet I had never felt before. It told me I was entering a battle, not with swords or fire, but with white paper and black ink. That morning, I had just left a meeting with the interior design team for a new project when I received a message from Laura, the booking supervisor at Somerset, one of the 3 hotels in my system. Hey, the client named L&N Events just confirmed the Grand Lux package for next weekend, but I don't remember you approving this booking. Their info is really sparse. Want me to double check? I froze in the marble hallway, staring at my phone screen. L&N Events? The name was unfamiliar, but it immediately made me cautious. I called Thomas right away. Access the Somerset booking system, check the orders for next weekend, client name, contact number, signer, everything. Less than 10 minutes later, Thomas walked into my office with a half-surprised, half-skeptical look. The orders from L&N Events, no direct phone number, just a proxy email, but the secondary contact says RB Collective, Stylist and Social Manager. I looked at him. He nodded. I checked. It stands for Rachel Blake, your sister. I wasn't surprised. Not anymore. Only a long silence swept through my chest like a slow, cold wind. I opened the detailed scheduling system. The order was neatly filed in the hotel's internal system, processed by a new sales staff member. Apparently, no one suspected since the client used a business email address. I zoomed in on the selected services. The Grand Lux package, including renting the entire Somerset Grand Hall for 2 days, fresh flowers imported from the Netherlands, high-end sound system, private security, outdoor arrangements, an 18-item buffet, personalized decorations, plus event media management services. Total value nearly $190,000. Not a single line mentioned Arya Blake. Nor was there any call to request permission to use the Rowan Estate brand for promotion. Only cold, straightforward words sent as if I didn't exist. I slid open the Somerset surveillance camera tab, selected yesterday's date, jumped to the time between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m., the usual period for site inspections. The footage appeared. Rachel wore a white fur coat, oversized high heels on the stone floor, pulling along a short-haired woman in a suit, probably the lead planner. Take down that curtain. That color looks cheap, Rachel's voice rang clearly. She pointed at each corner of the hall, smiling and saying, "This is the vibe I want. French style, but with urban colors. The backyard needs fixing too. Those flower bushes are too low. They look awful in pictures." The video fast-forward to Rachel turning to the floral coordinator, her tone sharp. "What kind of flowers are these? Who ordered this?" "I said white orchids, not this bunch of country roses." The young employee looked embarrassed, bowed her head, said something I couldn't hear clearly. Rachel sighed heavily, grabbed the entire bouquet, threw it on the table. One flower fell to the floor. She kicked it lightly away. "Oh my God, I swear I've never seen such unprofessional organizers." I paused the video, gripping the armrest tightly. Thomas sighed softly, voice low. "Want me to cancel the order right away?" I shook my head. "Not yet." He looked surprised. "You're going to let them continue?" "I'm going to let her go so far that she can't come back." I opened an internal document tab, created a new folder named RB Unauthorized Booking. Then, opened the camera system, marked the segment from 3:16 p.m. to 4:13 p.m., saved the entire interaction between Rachel and the staff. Next, I sent an internal email to the hotel's legal and communications departments, titled Potential Conflict of Interest, Request for Close Monitoring. Thomas watched me for a few seconds, then smiled lightly, tilting his head as if realizing something. She thinks, you won't dare act because of your reputation, because of the Monroe name. I stared at the screen where Rachel sat on the lobby steps, laughing loudly with the behind-the-scenes videographer. She thinks this is a PR game, I said quietly, but this is my turf. Thomas stepped back, quietly said, all right, let her play her own game then. I nodded, no more words needed, because at that moment I knew, step by step, I was pushing everything to where the truth wouldn't need to shout, it only needed to be recorded. At the right time, the right way. I stood behind the sheer veil curtain on the second floor, from a spot where I could observe the entire main hall without anyone below knowing. The afternoon sunlight slanted through the glass, making golden streaks spread over the marble floor like a smooth silk ribbon. Rachel just walked in, wearing a tight white dress, hair in a high bun, wearing pearl earrings she'd once bragged were custom ordered from Italy. She smiled, nodded at each employee, gently placed her hand on Caleb's arm, as if he were an essential part of the fairy tale wedding atmosphere she was staging. Following them were Mr. and Mrs. Monroe. I'd heard of them in financial circles, but never met. Mrs. Monroe wore a perfectly tailored ash gray suit, sunglasses hanging from her collar, eyes slowly and carefully inspecting every corner of the hall. She said nothing, but was clearly evaluating. Rachel hurried up a step, arms wide, voice a half step higher than normal. This is Somerset, the main venue for our engagement party, she said, glancing at Mrs. Monroe. It looks simple now, but everything can be adjusted to your liking. Mrs. Monroe didn't respond. She turned to a nearby employee, asking gently, is this building privately owned? The employee hesitated. Rachel quickly jumped in. Yes, I'm not directly involved, but my family has close ties to the founder. Everyone here knows me already. Mrs. Monroe tilted her head, eyes slightly narrowed behind clear glasses. So, who owns it? Rachel pursed her lips. Caleb looked at her, waiting for an explanation she clearly didn't have. That's when I stepped out of the shadows. My heels clicked steadily on the stone stairs. I wore a navy blue suit, hair low bunned, no jewelry, no flashiness, only my voice was clear as I stopped mid-steps. Hello, I'm Aria Blake, owner of the Rowan Estate, including Somerset and 2 other locations in Charleston. I continued down into the hall slowly but decisively, every step on the floor as if calculated beforehand. All eyes turned to me. Rachel froze, lips slightly pursed but unable to speak. Caleb looked at me, confusion turning to realization. Mrs. Monroe? She slightly tilted her head, as if finally seeing what she wanted. It's a pleasure to welcome you, Mr. and Mrs. Monroe, to Somerset, I continued, keeping a calm tone. If there's anything that needs adjusting for the engagement, our team is always ready to assist. Mr. Monroe was the first to nod. This place is very impressive, Miss Blake. Thank you, sir, I replied. We spent nearly 2 years restoring it, preserving the original 19th century structure while integrating modern technology for sound, lighting, and air conditioning. Every wall has its own story. Mrs. Monroe looked around. And you built all of this? I started with an abandoned house, I answered. Now I own a chain of 3 upscale locations, but Somerset is where I've put the most heart. Mrs. Monroe nodded lightly, resting her hand on the lobby railing. I deeply respect capable women. Quiet strength often speaks louder than thousands of online shares. Caleb turned to Rachel, quietly asking, You said this hotel was funded by someone else? Rachel pressed her lips, a flicker of panic in her eyes quickly replaced by a crooked smile. I just didn't think you would be involved directly. Oh, I always have time for what matters, I said softly, then turned to Mrs. Monroe. If you'd like to tour other areas on the property, I can personally show you around. Mrs. Monroe smiled. I would be very pleased. I turned slightly. Laura, prepare the west lawn, and bring me the floor plans for the private rooms. Laura nodded and quickly left. I invited Mr. and Mrs. Monroe to follow me down the long corridor leading to the backyard garden. Rachel remained rooted in place. I didn't look back, no need, because in that moment, everything I had ever lacked, recognition, respect, a rightful place within my own family, no longer depended on their eyes. It was present in every step I took, every stone tile I had chosen, every door opening exactly the way I wanted. And I knew no one could erase me from the story I had written with my own hands. I was sitting in Somerset's main office when the video replayed for the third time on the screen. The image was clear down to every gesture. Rachel, standing in the grand hall, pointing at a young employee. Voice sharp, "Not that kind of flower. Don't you understand English?" The girl bowed her head, fingers gripping the tablecloth edge, trying to hide her embarrassment. To the left of the frame, another employee stepped forward to explain, but before he could finish, Rachel snatched the clipboard from his hand, threw it on the floor, then turned back to the planner. "I'm not paying to work with incompetence." I muted the sound and saved the clip into an internal folder. The file was clearly named Policy Violation, Staff Harassment, Day 11. No edits needed, no embellishments. I sent that video to the legal department, attaching a short note. Request action under Internal Ethics Clause, Section 4.2. Conduct damaging staff and brand reputation. 2 hours later, the Rowan Estates legal counsel responded. A contract termination letter was drafted, citing clear reasons client grossly violated conduct rules at Somerset, impacting staff, breaching service ethics. The letter contained no angry language. It was cold, precise, leaving no room for a late apology. The notice was sent to Rachel's planner at 8 p.m., less than 12 hours before the official engagement party. I sat by the window, watching the streetlights twinkle outside as my phone started buzzing non-stop. Not messages checking in, but links sent from all directions. A famous wedding blog, The Union Letter, had just published an article titled "Last Minute Wedding Cancelled, Bridezilla or Her Own Worst Enemy." The article didn't use full names, but anyone who had followed Rachel's account recognized instantly. A short clip, excerpted from surveillance video showing Rachel yelling at staff and throwing flowers on the floor, appeared at the end. The first sharer was an anonymous member of the event decorating team, unable to bear the silence any longer. Comments exploded like wildfire. "I can't believe she behaved like that where people make their living. One sister built a hotel. The other only knows how to destroy. Bridezilla of the year, no doubt about it." I didn't hit like, I didn't comment. I just sat quietly, reading each line without feeling much. No satisfaction. No sadness. Just releasing something that had been stuck for a long time. The next morning, while reviewing my schedule at the office, Thomas walked in, holding a large bouquet wrapped in pale gray paper with a silver bow. "It's from Mrs. Monroe," he said, placing it on my desk. "No card, just a small note. Thank you for maintaining integrity." I picked up the bouquet. Inside the wrapping were white daffodils. A flower symbolizing awakening, but also a symbol of boundaries. I placed the bouquet beside a small framed photo on my desk. The photo of Somerset in its early days. The image was slightly faded by sunlight, but the first bricks were still clearly visible. That afternoon, Caleb appeared at the hotel. Unannounced, quietly. He came alone, without flowers, and didn't ask to see Rachel. He just asked for a few minutes alone with me. We sat across from each other in a small conference room with a window overlooking the West Garden. "I came to thank you," Caleb began, "for not staying silent." I nodded gently, saying nothing. I used to think Rachel was just complicated. But I've realized I overlooked a lot, and my silence for so long was part of the problem. He paused before continuing. "I told my mother that I can't marry someone who doesn't know how to respect others. She wasn't surprised. Maybe she knew before I did. I didn't ask further. Didn't need to. What I needed to see, I saw in Mrs. Monroe's eyes that afternoon. When Caleb left, he shook my hand firmly. I hope to meet you again, but in a different circumstance, where you don't have to stay silent to keep the peace. I walked him to the door. Not long after, Rachel posted a brief explanation video on her account. No bright lights, no background music. She sat in front of a blank screen, no makeup, voice hoarse and slow. But I didn't watch it fully. Not because I didn't care, but because there was nothing left to hear. I closed my laptop and stepped out onto the porch. The soft, early-season sunlight spread gently across the old brick tiles. There I didn't need to speak, didn't need to prove anything, just breathe steadily and let the truth speak for itself. I was sitting in the kitchen, lightly stirring a cup of peppermint tea when my phone rang. The screen showed the caller's name, Dad. I didn't hesitate or prepare myself. I answered as if I had been waiting for that call for a long time. "Arya," he began, his voice deeper and hoarser than I remembered. "I just wanted to talk for a bit, not to blame, just... Are you sure you're on the right path?" I leaned back in my chair, eyes gazing out the window. Outside, the early fall leaves were starting to change colors. Everything was changing, except his voice remained the same. Always slow, as if rapping something he couldn't say aloud. "You're tearing the family apart," he continued, straightforward. "Rachel, she's still your sister." I let a beat pass before replying. "No, Dad, I'm not tearing the family apart. I just stopped letting others tear me apart." He was silent, a silence as heavy as a boulder dropping into water, making no ripples. I set my tea down, still holding the phone close, my tone steady. For years, I accepted everything. Played the peacemaker, stayed silent, the daughter who didn't cause trouble. Every time Rachel messed up, people looked to me to back down. Every time Mom spoke, Dad looked away. His voice came softly, like an unprepared excuse. "I don't want division, I just want peace." "I understand," I said, "but sometimes peace is just another form of denial. Every time I stayed silent, I learned how to drown myself, just to fit this family frame." I heard his sigh on the other end. Not regret, not anger, just exhaustion. Maybe, in his heart, I was still the quiet girl who brought Rachel her meals, then stood outside the door, listening to the family's laughter. "Your mother, she didn't mean harm, just a harsh way of showing it," he said, choosing soft words to cover a sharp knife. "I don't need anyone to admit fault," I said slowly. "I'm not asking anyone to change. I just need to stand up for myself. I'm doing it not to cause noise, but to keep what's left of me." Another silence stretched. "I once wished to see you stand by me. Just once," I continued, voice free of blame. "But I've grown, and I've learned not to wait anymore." I heard him swallow hard. "Don't you think twice? This has become loud. She's still family, after all. Outsiders will judge." I smiled, silently. "Outsiders have judged me my whole life, Dad. For not marrying, for living quietly, for not showing off. I'm used to that. I'm just no longer used to living to please those who never truly saw me." There was no immediate reply. Then he sighed, a long breath as if carrying years of weariness in his chest. "So, what do you want from this family now?" he asked softly. I closed my eyes, resting my head on the chair. "I want nothing. No demands, no revenge. I just want to be myself, even if it makes others uncomfortable." A gentle breeze slipped through the slightly open window. The lace curtain fluttered, sunlight dancing across the wooden floor. I looked at those light streaks and felt calm. "I understand," he said after a pause. "I just hope you don't feel lonely." I smiled, though he couldn't see it. "I'm not lonely, Dad, never truly lonely. I just had to learn to live without applause from those I once hoped for." I heard his breathing slow, Nothing more to say, nothing left to hold back. I pulled the phone away, looked at the screen for a second, then gently ended the call. No tears, no trembling, just a quiet little ending to a lifetime of conversations waited for. I put the phone in the desk drawer, closed it, then turned to my tea. It was cold, but that was okay. Some things only need silence to feel warm enough. I returned to the office on Monday morning like always. Early sunlight filtered through the tree leaves outside the window, spreading across the oak desk worn by time. In my inbox, most were financial reports, partner proposals, routine maintenance info for Somerset. But one email made me pause longer than usual. Subject: Family event booking, Monroe, Monterey direct priority, with Ms. Arya Blake. The sender was Mrs. Monroe's assistant, polite, brief, but clear. Her granddaughter would host an engagement party next month. They wanted the venue to be Somerset, and they only wanted to work with me. I didn't feel excited, nor did I see it as a reward or redemption for what had happened. I quietly hit confirm receipt, forwarded the email to the event team, adding a single line: I will handle the design and staffing checks personally. A few minutes later, Thomas knocked and entered with a coffee in hand, his eyes quickly scanning my screen. That's the Monroe order, right? I nodded, accepting the coffee, the warm vanilla scent spreading like a quiet musical note. So they're coming back, Thomas said, sitting across. Not surprising. I said nothing. I just looked out at the stone courtyard where a few staff were cleaning fallen leaves early in the morning. Everything kept moving, and so did I. 3 weeks had passed since the night Rachel quietly disappeared from Somerset. No apologies, no messages. She deleted all posts on social media, set her account to private, no longer updating photos or statements. A sudden silence, with no explanation. No one in the family spoke up. No calls from Mom, no letters from Dad, no messages from relatives. Everything felt like an old room sealed shut. No one left, but no one opened the door either. I thought I'd feel empty, but the deepest emptiness was realizing I no longer expected anything from them. I still went to work regularly, met with investors, inspected every corner of the hotel every Saturday morning. I read books at night, cooked for myself on weekends, sometimes walked along the Charleston Riverwalk, where the sunset drifted on the water like slow-flowing memories. One day, while reviewing the garden design for the Somerset expansion, I noticed a couple standing quietly by the glass door. They didn't see me. The woman excitedly explained to her boyfriend about the natural light during the golden hour in that area, as if dreaming up the most beautiful scene. I smiled, stepped back a few paces, letting them be. On the way back to the office, I thought, maybe victory isn't in applause or recognition. It's in being able to keep moving forward, fully, even when no one's waiting behind you. Thomas placed a small envelope on my desk when I returned to work. From the Monroes, he said. Not printed docs. Handwritten. I opened the letter. Handwritten on light cream paper, neat and sharp. Ms. Blake, not everyone understands the silence you've kept, but I believe what you've shown speaks enough. We are honored to continue working with you. Sincerely, B. Monroe. I folded the letter, placed it beside my cold tea. Outside, the maple leaves were turning brilliant colors, falling softly onto the weathered wood floor. No need to rush cleaning. That quietness had never felt so precious to me. I stood on Somerset's top-floor terrace, hand lightly resting on the white stone railing, Charleston's city lights spreading out before me like a golden carpet, full of things I once thought unreachable. The late autumn breeze brushed through my hair, carrying the salt from the distant river and the faint scent of jasmine from the garden below. Everything moved beneath, cars gliding slowly on cobblestone streets, laughter echoing from a bar balcony, window lights flickering on one by one like gentle whispers of a city that never sleeps. I took a deep breath, calm inside. Behind me, the hotel still operated as usual. Staff arranged flowers for tomorrow's engagement, the event for Mrs. Monroe's granddaughter. Voices, chair scraping, the rustle of silk fabric, no longer made me want to get up and fix things. I trusted my team, and more than that, I trusted what I had built. Not just a space, but a standard. I once thought I was the one entrusted with responsibility, the support others leaned on whenever they faltered. I thought if I didn't hold everything up, it would all collapse. But now I understand. I am not the hand pulled out when they need help, nor the landmark for those who lost their way and called back. I am the foundation. No one praises the foundation, but no one stands without it. I once waited for apologies, longed for recognition, believed if I were successful enough, humble enough, kind enough, they would come back, embrace me, and say they were proud. But then I realized what made me strong was never outside validation. It was the moment I stopped placing my worth in others' hands. I looked up at the sky, moonless but full of shining stars. That light didn't need to compete or declare, I am here, I matter. It simply kept shining in its own way. Below, the hotel's back garden was lit. Strings of small lights hung from trees, reflecting off white linen-covered tables and imported lilies. I knew every detail, every choice, because they reflected what I believed. Quiet precision always matters, even if no one names it. The glass door behind me opened gently. Thomas stepped out, holding 2 warm cups of tea. "I knew you'd be here," he said, handing me one. I accepted it with a slight nod. "Guests are arriving early tomorrow. Monroe said she wants to bring her granddaughter around noon to enjoy the garden." "Okay," I said. "Tell the front desk to prepare extra fabric samples. That girl's style is pretty unique." Thomas was silent a moment, then looked at me with a serious but meaningful gaze. "You okay?" I turned to him, a faint smile appearing. "I don't need anyone to say I'm okay anymore, Thomas. As long as my heart no longer feels empty, that's enough." He nodded, not asking more. We looked out together at the distant dock, shimmering with lights, where old houses still held their calm amid the ever-changing flow. In that scene, I no longer felt I had to push myself to prove, no longer had to step back to keep peace, and no longer had to silently carry all the pain. I am simply me. No debts, no burdens, no roles. And if there's one thing I want to send to anyone listening to this story, it might be this. You don't need to prove to anyone that you're worthy. You just need to live so your heart no longer feels empty. That is the greatest victory. Or what about you? As you listen, have you ever seen yourself in a moment where you stayed silent to keep peace? When you pushed yourself thinking it was necessary, or when you finally stopped waiting and walked your own path? Have you ever wondered, does kindness have limits? And if so, where are those limits? At the last tear? Or the forgiveness no one remembers? And I really want to know your thoughts. Leave a comment below. Tell me your story about family, about pain, about how you overcame, because maybe what you share will be the comfort someone needs. And if stories like this touch you gently but deeply, please subscribe to the channel, because many more journeys are waiting to be told. Stories about family, about love, about silent but heavy boundaries, and maybe one of them will help you name the feelings you've been holding inside all this time. See you in the next story.